evening. Welcome to Channel 9 News at 6. Tonight we will be discussing the Mexican-American War and the Manifest Destiny. To refresh our viewers just joining us tonight, the Mexican-American War began in 1846 and ended in 1848. In addition, the annexation of Texas will be a main topic of discussion and westward expansion as well. Here we have a Mexican mother to share her opinion on the war.
Hi, thanks for having me here today.
Welcome to the show. May I ask you a few questions?
Yes, of course.
All right, how about we start with your personal opinion on the war? What do you think about the motives of the Americans? For those viewers who are not up to speed, the Americans are fighting with Mexico due to the annexation of Texas and over the expansion of slavery.
Well, I personally think that the Mexican government should allow us to be independent, since they are closed off in regards to diplomatic relations. I think that the Americans stepping in is extremely helpful in the independence of Texas, but I also believe that the casualties suffered were catastrophic. I want my children to grow up in a safe environment without fighting, so naturally, I was pleased with the end of the war.
According to a map that shows the path of travel of the American Army, am I correct in saying that a lot of fighting took place in New Mexico and Texas, and then in the strongly fortified city of Monterrey?
I lived in Texas, so I'm aware that the fighting passed through my city. And I found out at a later time that a large portion of fighting was in Monterrey, a city that I had visited a few times during my childhood.
I'm sure that was very hard to hear since you've had, I'm assuming, pleasant experiences that led to fond memories.
Yes, it was devastating. I love that city. Do you have any other questions for me today?
Yes, I have a few more. My next question, how do you feel about the South's main support for the war? In other words, how do you feel about the expansion of slavery?
I think since I am a new citizen of the United States that the expansion of slavery in question is bad and it brings us closer to a war as a union. I think the South believed that by acquiring new land, it will allow the slave trade to grow instead of letting the already free people inhabiting the land keep their freedom.
You are absolutely right. The South believes that the slavery drives the economy, while the North believes the opposite.
I firmly believe that this should not be the case. And I feel that as a continuing topic of discussion, throughout the Union, we could be rapidly approaching a major war that could separate the North from the South entirely, which would be horrendous.
What do you think we could do about this issue that seems to be a growing problem?
I think that the government should abolish slavery once and for all. I think it will end up eliminating a lot of arguments, and it would be promote equality for all races, effectively restoring humanistic views to all humans, not dehumanizing any other person based on skin color.
That is a fantastic point. Thank you for being here today. We here at Channel 9 News greatly appreciated your input.
Thank you for having me.
Now out to Gavin Storm in the field. How's it going out there, Gavin?
I'm out here in Massachusetts, Claudette, with a state legislator. I have Charles Sumner here to talk to us about the Mexican-American War. Welcome, Sumner. We're glad to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Not at all.
Great. Now, we all know that recently the United States of America incorporated Texas as its 28th state. However, there has been a lot of controversy over this matter. What is your take on this, Mr. Sumner?
You're right, Mr. Historian. This is a tricky subject. I believe that since citizens of the United States have already begun to move into Texas, the idea was that this extensive province ought to become part of the United States.
So, you believe that because people from the United States were moving into the Texas territory, it was in our best interest to incorporate Texas into our union?
Yes. Shall we proceed?
Very well. After the incorporation, a vast emigration occurred with citizens, mainly from the South, moving to Texas. Do you think that this emigration is beneficial to our society?
I think that this western expansion is detrimental to our society, since it encourages the expansion of slavery. Despite the fact that Mexico abolished slavery, many Southerners did cross the Sabine with their slaves in defiance of the Mexican Ordinance of Freedom. This disunion between the countries is what caused all of this hullabaloo.
Hullabaloo indeed, Charles.
After the annexation of Texas, the issue of slavery's expansion will be forever intertwined with the political organization of the West.
A sad truth indeed, a sad truth indeed.
There's too much drama surrounding the Texas issue. Slavery should never be an option.
That That is a very powerful statement. Very powerful. Do you mind if I ask you one more question?
Go on.
President Polk may be watching this broadcast right now. Do you have any words of recommendation you would like to give to him?
Polk, if you are watching this broadcast right now, pay attention. I do not know who you think you are. I do not know what you want with the annexation of Texas. If you're looking for money, I can tell you Texas is not the best option. But what Mexico does have is a very particular set of border aids, skills they have acquired over a very long career fighting for their independence from Spain. Texas is becoming a nightmare for people like you. If you let this issue go now, that'll be the end of it. They will not go to war with you, they will not pursue you. But if you don't, they will declare war on you. They will fight you, and many lives will be lost.
And on that note, back to the studio.
Now over to Bakira, who's at the White House in order to interview two Southerners, President James K. Polk and John O'Sullivan, on their beliefs about the Manifest Destiny and the annexation of Texas.
Thanks, Claudette. Now we will be discussing the idea of manifest destiny with two Southerners. These past few years, a belief that God intended for us Americans to expand our nation all the way to the Pacific has been spreading like wildfire. I am here with John O'Sullivan, who is a well-known supporter of this idea of manifest destiny.
I definitely believe in the idea of manifest destiny. We absolutely must attempt to expand from sea to sea. Other nations have undertaken hostile interference from us, hampering our power, limiting our greatness, and checking the fulfillment of our manifest destiny to overspread the continent allotted by Providence for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions.
So what you're saying is that other countries are interfering with our outward expansion, which God has destined for us to do, right?
That is correct. We cannot let other nations claim land which Providence has rightfully given to us.
Now, what do you think God has destined America for? What do you believe our country's future will be like?
America is destined for better deeds. The expansive future is our arena and for our history. We are entering on its untrodden space with the truths of God in our minds. We are the nation of human progress. And who will, what can set limits to our onward march? Providence is with us, and no earthly power can.
So, you believe that Americans have a bright and promising future to look forward to, right?
Precisely. The far-reaching, the boundless future will be the era of American greatness.
Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan. Claudette, I'm also here with President James K. Polk, who would like to talk about his support of annexation with Texas. Mr. Polk, what exactly are your thoughts on Texas annexation?
I feel that the Republic of Texas has made known her desire to come into our union, to form part of our confederacy, and enjoy us with the blessings of liberty secured and guaranteed by our Constitution.
As president, when do you wish for Texas to be annexed into the Union? Do you want it to be done immediately, or are you going to wait a little bit in order to think it out?
I shall endeavor by all constitutional, honorable, and appropriate means to consume the expressed will of the people and government of the United States by the reannexation of Texas to our Union at the earliest predictable period.
Re-annexation? What do you mean? Are you saying that we had control over Texas before?
Indeed it was. Texas was once a part of our country, was unwisely ceded away to a foreign power, is now independent, and possesses an undoubted right to dispose of a part or the whole of her territory, and to merge her sovereignty as separate and independent state in ours.
Okay. Finally, do you think that Texas's annexation would benefit it as well as our whole country?
Yes, the annexation would help both Texas and country as a whole. To Texas, the reunion is important because the strong protecting arm of our government would be extended over her, and the vast resources of her fertile soil would be speedily developed, while the safety of New Orleans and of our whole southwestern frontier against hostile aggression, as well as the interests of the whole Union, would be prompted by it.
I see. Well, thank you for your time, Mr. Polk.
Anytime, Bakira.
Thanks to Bakira, Claudette, and Gavin Storm, the state senator from Massachusetts,
Such a great take on what the Northerners think about what's going on with Texas. It was such a great interview to hear, especially to hear from what the minds of the government officials think, instead of hearing what the government actually doesn't want people to think.
Gavin Storm was a very interesting man to hear from.
Now I want to hear from the people in the studio.
Are you interviewing an interviewer?
Yes, indeed I am, Bakira. So, did you think that Nicholas P. Trist was actually the man not only to create an armistice, but actually help create the treaty between Mexico and the United States?
I do not believe he did, because in Mexico, a conference that began on the 27th of August and closed on September 7th by Mexican rejection of the terms offered. Scott promptly resumed his advance after hard fighting through September 7th to 11th. At the battles of Molino del Rey and Chapultepec, whatever you say that, he captured Mexico City on 14th of September and with his staff entered the palace, over which he hoisted the American flag.
Achoo!
God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you and good night.
Go.
I'm out here in Massachusetts, Claudette, with a state legend. No. Come close. I have to tell you something. I really can't stay. I've got to go away. This evening has been so very nice. It looks. Oh, it's stuck.
Fridge. Oh. Okay. It's kind of fridge.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
What you doing in here, Claudette?
Hey, Frosting.